Every trainer at your gym insists resistance training burns off that stubborn potbelly hanging over your waistband. Science disagrees. That fat bulging beneath your muscles isn't ordinary belly fat. It's dangerous visceral fat wrapped around your organs deep inside your body. This visceral fat hides underneath your subcutaneous fat, tucked into the peritoneal space surrounding your liver, intestines, and stomach. It can literally push outward, distorting your entire midsection, making you look far heavier than you actually are. And here's the part almost nobody wants to admit out loud, because it challenges everything the fitness industry has been selling you for years. Researchers pulled together 35 separate peer-reviewed studies published inside the journal Obesity Reviews, and the results were shocking. Resistance training, despite being incredible for muscle, strength, and long-term metabolic health, showed no measurable impact on visceral fat reduction whatsoever. Let that sink in for a second, because this isn't some fringe opinion. This is compiled clinical evidence. Visceral fat isn't just cosmetic either. It's directly linked to chronic inflammation running quietly through your entire bloodstream. More visceral fat means more white blood cells, more C-reactive protein, and more systemic inflammation overall. That inflammation quietly sabotages your glucose metabolism, spikes your insulin levels, and makes losing fat even harder. So if lifting weights alone won't shrink that visceral fat, what actually will move the needle? Before you assume the answer is simply cardio, slow down, because it's more nuanced than that. Yes, traditional aerobic exercise did show a moderate reduction in visceral fat across the studies reviewed, but here's the twist that surprised even the researchers conducting this massive analysis of combined training methods. 9 separate studies combined resistance training with aerobic exercise, expecting a stronger, more powerful, synergistic fat loss effect. Instead, they found practically no additional benefit, meaning resistance training added almost nothing extra to fat loss. So does that mean every muscular person telling you to lift weights is secretly wrong? Not exactly, because resistance training still plays an absolutely critical role behind the scenes. We'll get to that role shortly, but first, let's talk about what actually works best. A separate study, published inside the respected Journal of Physiology, revealed something even more interesting. Short, high-intensity bursts of cardio outperformed traditional steady-state cardio when it came to shrinking visceral fat. Not long, exhausting sessions on a treadmill, but brief, concentrated bursts of intense effort. Understanding exactly why this works will help you get dramatically more results from every single workout. High-intensity interval training burns more calories per minute because the effort is so concentrated. But calorie burn is honestly only half of this fascinating physiological story unfolding inside your body. During these short, intense bursts, your body releases a significant spike in human growth hormone. That spike activates something called hormone-sensitive lipase, a fancy term for your body's fat-releasing enzyme. This enzyme dramatically increases lipolysis, meaning your body starts breaking down stored fat for fuel. That's precisely why so many people swear by high-intensity interval training for stubborn fat loss. But there's an even deeper layer to this story, hidden inside your fat cells themselves. Visceral fat contains a higher concentration of glucocorticoid receptors compared to fat stored elsewhere. These receptors respond powerfully to cortisol, your body's primary stress hormone released under pressure. Here's where it gets fascinating, because cortisol can either help you or completely sabotage you. Combine high cortisol with excess food intake, and your body stores more visceral fat. But combine that same cortisol with intense physical output, and you burn visceral fat instead. This single mechanism might explain why high-intensity training uniquely targets stubborn belly fat. So how exactly should you structure your workouts to trigger this powerful fat-burning response? Forget jogging for 20 straight minutes at a brutal, exhausting 80% effort level. Instead, think in short, explosive bursts, followed by complete, unhurried recovery between each one. Sprint for roughly 30 seconds, giving genuinely maximum effort, then rest until you're fully recovered.
That recovery period matters far more than most people realize when designing their interval workouts. Walk for about a minute, sometimes longer, until your breathing returns completely to normal. Then sprint again, repeating this pattern for around 15 to 20 total minutes. The interval itself should always be the hardest part, never the entire grueling workout. This approach mirrors how you'd structure resistance training, treating each sprint like a heavy lift. Full effort, followed by full recovery, repeated consistently, produces dramatically better long-term results overall. Traditional aerobic exercise still absolutely deserves a place inside your weekly training routine as well. Walking briskly, jogging slowly, or cycling gently within zone 2 or 3 works beautifully. That means staying around 60% of your maximum heart rate during these easier sessions. This moderate intensity zone supports cardiovascular health, general calorie burn, and steady visceral fat reduction. But remember, the deepest, most concentrated fat-burning benefit still comes specifically from intense intervals. So where exactly does resistance training fit inside this bigger, more complete picture? Resistance training doesn't directly shrink visceral fat, but it dramatically improves how you burn it. Your muscles act like sponges, soaking up excess glucose circulating through your bloodstream constantly. When you build more muscle, that muscle becomes more efficient at using available fuel. This directly prevents glucose and insulin levels from staying chronically elevated throughout your entire day. Elevated insulin over time encourages fat storage, not just visceral fat, but fat everywhere. So resistance training indirectly protects you from future visceral fat accumulation by improving fuel usage. It simply doesn't burn as many calories directly compared to intense cardio sessions. Instead, it creates a longer-lasting metabolic boost that compounds significantly over months and years. Think of resistance training as your long-term insurance policy against future metabolic dysfunction and fat gain. Now let's put every single piece of this puzzle together into one clear plan. Train your full body using resistance exercises somewhere between 2 and 5 days weekly. Add gentle Zone 2 cardio for 15 to 30 minutes, 2 or 3 days weekly. On days you already train, layer in 15 to 20 minutes of high-intensity intervals. This combination attacks visceral fat from every possible angle, using science instead of guesswork. You're not choosing between cardio and weights anymore. You're strategically combining both for maximum results. Understanding the why behind your workout changes everything about how consistently you'll actually stick with it. Most people fail not because they lack discipline, but because they're doing the wrong exercises entirely. Now you know exactly which movements target visceral fat and exactly why they work. That potbelly isn't stubborn because you're lazy. It's stubborn because you had incomplete information. Armed with this research, your next workout can finally start producing the results you deserve.
Let's go even deeper, because understanding this fully changes how you'll train for the rest of your life. Nutrition plays a massive role here too, and ignoring it undermines even the smartest workout routine you follow. Cortisol combined with excess food promotes visceral fat storage. Then chronic stress eating becomes a hidden saboteur working against your progress daily. Highly processed carbohydrates spike insulin rapidly, and repeated spikes train your body to store fat defensively around your organs. This doesn't mean carbs are evil. It means timing and quality matter significantly more than most people assume. Pairing your high-intensity intervals with balanced meals rich in protein and fiber amplifies the fat-burning signal your body just received. Protein specifically supports muscle repair after intense effort, ensuring your resistance training sessions actually translate into long-term metabolic improvement. Fiber slows digestion, stabilizes blood sugar, and prevents the dramatic insulin spikes that encourage stubborn visceral fat accumulation over time. Sleep deserves serious attention too, because poor sleep quietly elevates cortisol levels even without any obvious daily stress. Just one night of inadequate sleep can measurably increase cravings, reduce willpower, and impair insulin sensitivity the following day.
Chronic sleep deprivation creates a perfect storm, combining elevated cortisol with impaired glucose regulation, exactly like the scenario described earlier. This means your pillow might matter almost as much as your workout when targeting visceral fat successfully. Aim for consistent sleep timing, a cool, dark bedroom, and minimal screen exposure before bed for measurable hormonal benefits. Hydration also plays a quieter but meaningful role in supporting metabolic function during intense interval training sessions. Dehydration reduces exercise performance, limits fat mobilization, and makes recovery between sprints noticeably harder than it should be. Drinking water consistently throughout your day supports better circulation, more efficient nutrient delivery, and improved hormone regulation overall. Now let's address a mistake many people make once they finally understand this high-intensity approach works. They assume more intensity always means better results, pushing themselves into exhausting daily sprint sessions without adequate recovery. This backfires quickly because chronically elevated cortisol from overtraining actually promotes the exact visceral fat storage you're trying to eliminate. Recovery isn't optional, it's the mechanism through which your body actually adapts and becomes stronger between sessions. 2 to 3 high-intensity sessions weekly, spaced apart properly, dramatically outperform daily exhausting sprints that never allow recovery. Your nervous system needs time to reset, your hormones need time to rebalance, and your muscles need genuine repair. Ignoring these recovery signals often leads to plateaus, frustration, and eventually complete abandonment of an otherwise excellent training strategy. Another common mistake involves measuring progress solely through the bathroom scale instead of tracking meaningful body composition changes. Visceral fat reduction often shows up first as reduced waist circumference, improved energy levels, and better fitting clothing around your midsection. The scale might barely move initially, especially if you're simultaneously building muscle through consistent resistance training sessions. Muscle is denser than fat, meaning your weight might stay stable while your body composition improves dramatically underneath. Instead, measure your waist circumference weekly, take progress photos monthly, and pay attention to how your clothes fit. These practical indicators often reveal visceral fat loss long before any noticeable change appears on a traditional scale.
Consistency matters more than perfection here, because sporadic, intense efforts without a sustainable routine rarely produce lasting results. Missing one workout occasionally won't derail your progress, but abandoning the entire structured plan repeatedly absolutely will. Building this into a genuine lifestyle, rather than a temporary, intense phase, creates the compound effect needed for real change. Think about it like compound interest. Small, consistent deposits of effort accumulate into significant, measurable transformation over several months. This is precisely why understanding the science behind each component matters so much for long-term adherence and motivation. When you know exactly why sprinting works, why recovery matters, and why resistance training protects you long-term, showing up becomes easier. Motivation fades eventually for everyone, but understanding creates discipline that persists even when motivation completely disappears during difficult weeks. So the next time you're tempted to skip your interval session or extend your rest days indefinitely, remember the mechanism. Remember the glucocorticoid receptors. Remember the hormone-sensitive lipase. Remember exactly what's happening beneath your skin during every single session. This knowledge transforms exercise from a vague obligation into a precise, targeted strategy addressing the exact problem you're facing. You're no longer guessing, hoping, or following generic advice handed down without any real scientific backing behind it. You're now working with your body's actual biology, using research-backed methods specifically shown to reduce dangerous visceral fat. That shift from guessing to understanding is ultimately what separates temporary frustration from lasting, sustainable, genuinely earned physical transformation.